the Malvern Hills rise up dramatically from the Severn Vale. They range for 8 miles along the border of Worcestershire and Herefordshire and present a striking landmark for miles around. The highest peak is Worcestershire Beacon, which stands nearly 1,400 feet above sea level. Reaching its summit is sufficiently strenuous that the mountaineer George Mallory trained here for his first attempt to climb Mount Everest in 1921. Those who scale the steep slopes in Mallory's footsteps are rewarded with a stunning panorama of the Wye Valley to the west and the Severn Valley to the east. Running due east from here, the next highest point of land is the Ural Mountains of Russia. The story of the Malverns began nearly 700 million years ago in the fiery ball of molten minerals that was planet Earth. As the planet slowly cooled, the minerals hardened into igneous rocks, the hard granites and diorites that make up the Malvern Range. At around 600 million years old, these are the oldest hills in England. Granite is made up of 3 minerals that show up in different veins in the rock. The light streaks are quartz, the pink or orange bands, feldspar, and the darker ones, mica. Mica is often known as fool's gold because it contains particles that sometimes glitter like the real thing. It certainly fooled a number of prospectors over the years. In the early 18th century, for example, William Williams of Bristol spent £600, the equivalent of around £80,000 today, sinking a 220-foot deep shaft into the Malvern Hills in a search for gold. Needless to say, it was a complete waste of money, and locals weren't the least bit surprised. Although they referred to the scales of glittering mica washed down by the streams as gold dust, they didn't waste their time collecting it. There is one product of the hills, though, that's more prolific and considerably easier to gather. Malvern's famous spring water owes its properties to the ancient rocks through which it flows. Rainwater permeates the hills through a network of cracks that act as a filter and remove impurities. Furthermore, because granite is so hard, it leaves little or no mineral traces in the water. So the water that gushes forth from the various springs at the foot of the hills is as pure as you can get. The properties of Malvern water have long been known to local people. In the 17th century, it was mentioned in a verse as being a cure for sore eyes, and also recorded that ladies did send 10 miles or more for water from a spring on Malvern Hill to wash their faces and make 'em fair. In 1757, John Wall, a respected Worcester doctor, published a paper called Experiments and Observations on the Malvern Waters. He ascribed miracle cures to the springs and concluded that their efficacy seems chiefly to arise from their great purity. To be effective, they need to be drunk at the spot and taken regularly over a long period. Taking the waters was becoming fashionable among the upper crust, and Dr. Wall's endorsement brought people from far and wide to drink from Malvern Springs. In August 1830, Malvern welcomed some extra special guests when the Duchess of Kent and her 12-year-old daughter, Princess Victoria, paid a visit. The princess, it seems, was quite taken with the local water because later, as queen, she refused to travel without a supply. The Queen's approval promoted Malvern to the front rank of Victorian spa resorts, and grand hotels transformed the little village into a bustling spa town. Mind you, coming here for the water treatment was no holiday, far from it. A typical day began at 6 a.m. with the patient being wrapped in cold, wet sheets for an hour, then placed in a bath of cold water. This was followed by a vigorous rub with a rough towel. Suitably invigorated, it was off to the hills to drink from the springs, usually at St. Anne's Well, where they were entertained, either by a German band or blind George Pullen on his organ. And all this before breakfast. Malvern's heyday as a spa town has gone. But the water still flows, and the ancient hills are as popular as ever. They remain a powerful pull for those who come to enjoy the bracing air, wonderful walks, or simply to gaze in awe at the magnificent views. Or maybe even prepare for an assault on Everest?